So basically this is WorkPlace Requisitions, and it is a web-based e-procurement system. As you can see, I can access it from the internet here. You can access it both internally and externally, provided you've published it externally. I'm going to log in as a user using SQL authentication. You can actually use either SQL or Windows authentication. That's up to you. You can have multiple databases to access from here. I've currently got one database configured. And notice I can also allow the users to change their passwords from here. That's also optional. I'm just going to log in at this stage. So basically, I've got a few options here. What the user sees at this point is entirely up to you. So you can create requisitions, you can receive goods, you can match invoices, and in my example, I've got some catalogs here which allow me to punch out to suppliers. I can also have an internal catalog, which could just be a vendor-based shopping list that's going to allow me to go and shop internally. So at this point, I'm just going to go and create a requisition. So I'll start at the very basics. So if you have a look here at my requisition screen, I'm logged in as Sam, who's a very basic requester who can create requisitions up to $100. Anything greater than $100 will require approval from someone, and then anything greater than $1,000 will require multiple approval, so forth. So if I look at this screen here, the options for my requester is to go and create requisitions, to find requisitions, and to find existing review sessions. So really the workflow is you create a requisition, it's routed for approval. Once it goes through all its approvals, so once it's finally approved, it goes to a review session where you can create the purchase order, and the purchase order automatically gets emailed to a supplier. Now you can also configure it such that you create the requisition, it gets multiple approvals, and then once it's finally approved, it automatically gets approved. Email to the supplier, so you can bypass this review session here. And alternatively, if you don't require approval, you can create a requisition and just go straight to the review when it will get emailed to the supplier. So it's really very flexible. You can do all sorts of things. So that's really my transaction entries that are available to me. Down here, I've got a number of reporting options, and as you can see, there are quite a few of them. I've allowed this particular user to do a certain amount of maintenance as well, and as I can see here, there's one outstanding requisition here that Sam started creating, however, has not submitted. So if I go and have a look at a very basic requisition entry screen, so I've hidden a number of fields here. I would have hidden at least 20 odd fields. So what I've done is I've just got a very basic requisition, and I'm going to say I'm purchasing perhaps some office equipment. Whether you use inventory or not is optional, but if I did a lookup here, you'll find that I've got some stock here, which is really stock that's directly coming in from Great Plains. So you can use stock, that's optional. Yeah, alternatively, you could just go and enter a free-form description. Notice I have a few fields here that are red, or they have little stars. So this, I've basically customized this and said that I'd like, God, I'm so sorry, I've got a terrible voice today, frog in my throat. So I've said that I want an item description to be a required field, I want a vendor to be required, and quantity, price, etc. All of that is up to you. So let's say I just went and put something in here. So I'm going to say that I'm purchasing some basic documentation. Let's say this is office equipment for Project Runway. So let's say I'm purchasing some simple documentation. And really, I know I've spelled it wrong, but that's okay. Quantity 1, and we're going to go $100, right? So in my configuration, I've said Sam can purchase anything up to $100, and it does not require approval. So let's go and find a supplier. Now, these suppliers are straight from Great Plains. I can do a lookup or a search by vendor ID, name, etc., all of these. And let's say if I selected name, I could say where it contains, and I could say contains advanced or one of these, whatever. If I said starts with AD or contains advanced, it'll bring a supplier up for me. So I'm going to select the supplier. So I've got basic most things done input here, except for my GL, which is a required field. So, well, in my case, I've not made it required. Now, your general ledger. You would always restrict your general ledger so that users don't see balance sheet accounts. In my example, I haven't restricted anything. Of course, most clients would. They would only allow them to see P&L accounts. You would also restrict it so that they only see accounts that are related to their divisions or their departments or however you choose. So I'm going to go where description contains, and let's just say sundry expense. Okay, so I've selected that one. So really, this particular line should not go for approval because it's $100. So just to give you a few, some variety here, I'm going to duplicate this line. And I'm going to say we're also purchasing some hardware. And really it's for $1,001. Because my rules are that when it's $100, it doesn't need approval, but when it's greater than 1,000, it needs multiple. It will require approval. And my approval would be greater than 100, it's not approved, greater than greater than 100 does not require, under 100 does not require approval. Greater than 100 requires one approver, and that approver is Mike. And then greater than 1,000 requires first Mike to approve it and then Bob Brown to approve it, just as an example. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate this line again, just and show you what happens if my rules also say that if I've purchased a capital item of any sort, and regardless of the dollars, so regardless of the dollars, so let's say I've made it 500, it's going to need an approval by my CapEx manager. Now, what determines the capital item is really my general ledger account. So I'm going to select my FA clearing account here. So I'm going to say description contains FA or clearing, whatever you've called it. So mine's called FA clearing. Okay, so I've got a 3-line requisition. All 3 of these lines are going to go for approval to different, and going to be treated differently. Now, obviously in my example, my approval is at the line level. I could have said that when my total is greater than 100, it goes for approval. So in other words, I can have either header level or line level approval. When I saved it, I can do things like go and add attachments. So I could add an attachment at the header level. So let's say I had a copy of a invoice or a quotation or something that I'd like to add to this, so that so there's my PDF invoice in this example, but let's just say it was a quote. I could add it at the header level. I can add attachments at the line level. And all these attachments will flow through to Great Plains as well. Okay. I can go and add comments. So these could be supplier comments or internal comments. A supplier comment could print on the purchase order. An internal comment will flow through to Great Plains. This internal comment will also appear on your email when you receive an email notification for approval. And then I can also go and modify my shipping information and say ship it here or there if I wanted a different shipping address. So at this point, I'm going to submit this. So when I submit it, you'll find that it's going to auto-approve my first line. So notice my first line is auto-approved because it's less than $100. Well, it's 100, and my rules are greater than 100. My second line has gone for approval to Michael, and my third line is gone for approval to 2 people. Now, if I go and look at my CapEx, so it's gone for approval to Michael and Peter. Okay, whereas if I look at my second line here, it's gone for approval to Michael and Bob because it's greater than 1,000. So it went first to Michael for the greater than 100 rule, and then to Bob for a greater than 1,000. So basically, all I'm demonstrating is sequential approval and approval based on your requirements, based on GL, supplier, absolutely any one of these fields. You can configure your approval by. Okay, so let's go back to my home page. Now notice I can actually recall this. So if for some reason I made a mistake and I want to change one of the figures, I can do that. And I could also just add another line at this point if I wanted to. So this is one way of creating a requisition. I will show you a number of other ways. But what I'm going to do is just go and do one approval so that we can actually go and see what it looks like when I approve. So it's Michael and Bob that needs to approve. So I'm going to log out as Sam and log in as Mike. Now at this point, Mike would have received an email notification. And basically, Mike can approve this. Notice Mike's homepage is also different. Mike has another option here where Mike could actually go in and activate an alternate for approval. I've obviously not set an alternate up for Mike, but I will show that to you using one of the other approvers. So Mike could have approved this from his email, and he could even have approved it. So basically, just from his email, he could have launched and approved. I'm just going to go and open my email up so I can show you what the email looks like. So the email has a simple yes/no option where Mike could say, yes, I approve this, or no, I don't, and provide a reason. And that would write back to WorkPlace and actually mark it as approved or not approved. So if I just go and look at my drafts here. So my email is not currently activated, so I'm just showing you a previously generated one. So let's pick one of these. So this is an example of what would have gone to Mike. And it just says the following requisitions are pending your approval. You can either launch the approval by clicking on this hyperlink, or you could just enter a yes or a no. So you reply to this email and enter a yes or a no in this little box here. If you entered a no, you can enter some description, and that would go and update the requisition and mark it as approved as well. So you could also approve from your iPhone or any smartphone or your iPads. Okay, so you've got all those options. So at this point, I'm actually going to approve it manually from within WorkPlace, logged in as Michael, because I don't have my emails activated. Now this is what the approval screen looks like. So, so basically, not much different from any other screen. So not difficult to understand. Okay, so it's got your header and it's got all the different lines here. So notice something that stands out here. Requisition, the line 1, 2, and 3. Line 1 does not require approval, and that's why it's grayed out. Line 2 and 3, because remember line 1 was less than $101. Line 2 and 3 basically do require approval from Mike. And what Mike can do is approve both or disapprove, or just leave them here for actioning later. So I'm going to keep it simple and approve. But Mike can also edit, and that's only because I've allowed him to edit. Okay, so Mike's going to approve this. And let's see what happens next. I think it's Bob or Peter that need to approve. So I'm going to go home, log out of here, and log in as Bob. I think that's my next approver. We will know soon. So Bob's got one line pending approval, so let me go and log. So really Bob was the second approver. So if I go and expand this, then you'll find it's the hardware line that's greater than 1,000 that required Bob's approval. So I'm going to approve that. So Mike approved the greater than 100. Bob's approving the greater than 1,000. And because it's sequential approval, Mike gets to see both the 100 and the 1,000. Okay, so I've approved this. So there's one more approval left, which is for Peter. And that was only for the fixed assets, okay, because Peter is my fixed assets manager. So really, you can configure it as you please. So now notice for Peter, there's one amount here, one line only. And I'm just not sure if, yep, so for Peter, I have set up an alternate. So notice if I go into his user preference, he can actually turn his alternates on or off by simply going and selecting an on or off here. And so if Peter was going away on holidays or taking just a day off or whatever, he could go and turn his alternate on and off, and he can see who his alternates are. So in his case, I'm his alternate, and he could also go and schedule someone. So he could go in and say, I want to schedule someone to approve on my behalf for a couple of days or for a particular period of time. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to go and approve. That's here, approve pending, one line, which is CapEx. And as I said, he can do this from his email. Notice everyone that I logged in had slightly different screens. So it's all about what access you've given them to. So if I actually expand this, you'll find there's only a CapEx line here. And that's because Peter only now needs to approve the CapEx. But what's more is I've not given Peter access to view lines 1 and 2, but I could have, and they would have been in read-only mode. Okay, so I'm just going to approve this. Peter can go and have a look at the attachments as well. There's my attachment. So all through the process, everything is visible. He can look at the details behind this. So he can view what his budget is for my FA clearing account, what my general ledger budget is, what's been committed, what my variance is, what the process has been so far. So it was created by Sam and submitted. Michael's already approved it as a first line manager, and now Peter is approving it. So I'll just approve that and process. And so basically, I now should have a fully approved requisition. And what would have happened is Sam, who was really my requester, the very first requester, would have received an email saying, your requisition is now fully approved and you can go and review it. So review is when Sam creates the purchase order. Now this is what I mentioned when I started, that you can actually bypass the step such that when Peter does the final approval, for this particular vendor, the requisition could have gone straight off to the supplier in an email, okay, as an email, a PDF email. So here's my 3-line requisition with all 3 lines fully approved. We can have a look at the details. It gives me all the details at any point. And really all Sam needs to do now is order this. Now, if this was something that you also, if you did use GP inventory, you could even release it from stock. So if it was something you didn't need to purchase, you could take it out of stock as well. So at this point, I'm just going to order it. And I'm going to process. So as soon as I create this purchase order, so it's requisition number 22, and the purchase order comes up in a second here, 2117. for advanced offers. If I go into Great Plains now and look at the same transaction, 2117, you'll find that there's my three line items, capital, hardware, and some simple documentation. And if I went and had a look here, you'll find that I can see my WorkPlace documents here. There's my attachment. And if I wanted to look at any history around it, tells me requisition number 22, line 1, 2, and 3 all became purchase order number 2117. So this will actually flow right down to the journal. And you've got this inquiry screen right down to the GL level. The same inquiry is available here in WorkPlace. So, so when the next step comes up, I'll show you that inquiry. So I'm going to go into, so you can create requisitions, create purchase orders in WorkPlace, and then do your receiving and invoice matching in Great Plains. Or you could also do your receiving and invoice matching in WorkPlace. It's really up to you. So at this point, let's go and receive these goods. So I'm just going to use an automated receiving wizard because that's the easiest way for me to do it. I could go and load it based on a supplier or a PO number. So I know my PO number here is 2117. So let's load it by PO number. So normally when you receive goods, you've got the PO number on the shipment or whatever, so it would make more sense to do that. So there's my 3 lines. On requisition number 22, my 3 lines. I can actually edit this. So if I had ordered more than one, I could say I've part received, I've only received 2, sorry, I've ordered 2, so I've received 1, and I'm going to receive 1 later. And you can do all the stuff that you are supposed to be able to do. So I'm going to receive this and process. Now when you do that, I could add comments, and I could even route this for approval again. So if there's a variance of more than 5% on my unit price, I would like to route it for approval again. So notice here it tells me I've got a batch that has gone through to Great Plains, and there's my receipt number. So if I went into Great Plains now, I should have that batch here. Did I miss that? I think I picked the wrong batch up. So it is batch number 11. Let me just close my purchase order and go into purchasing batches, find batch number 11. I did pick the wrong one up. And go and find it here. So it is, goodness. It is receipt number 1243. Okay, so that's my 3 lines. PO number, my capital, hardware, documentation. There's my WorkPlace attachments and my related documents. This time it's going one step further and showing me all the receipt information. I can actually zoom into any one of this, and it'll take me into my WorkPlace to those particular screens. So really at this point, all I need to do, there's my distributions, debit, purchase, expense, credit, accruals, etc. And all I need to do is post this transaction. Okay, so thereafter you may want to invoice match in Great Plains, or you may want to do that in WorkPlace. It's, I may just post this so that I can invoice match it. And so now the final step really is going to invoice match. And once again, with invoice matching, you could excellent. You could actually go and it's still going to post. That's fine. I've got a lot of third-party products installed here, which I may take some questions on later. I think a number of you use analytical accounting, etc. etc. So that's all available as an interface in WorkPlace. So what I'm going to do is go and invoice this. So last step, receive match invoice. So this time I'm actually invoicing. Notice you can do a shipment invoice or an invoice. And usually when you configure a user, you won't give them access to all three like that. They'll have access to one or the other. So it just makes it easier. You don't... and that's my PO, my invoice with my 3 lines, etc. Now I've not hidden anything here, so notice I've got jobs and service calls and whatever, because Great Plains does interface to a number of other products, and I've just left them there, but you would hide it all. And then over here, all you need is an invoice number. And all you need to do, you can view the distributions, you can do all sorts of things. I'm just one release short here. If I just upgrade it to the next release, you can even enter freight here if you would like to do that. And so at this point, I'm just going to process this, and you'll find that it's going to create an invoice in Great Plains. So there you go, another batch straight into Great Plains. If I went into Great Plains, that batch will be there. Batch number 12, and it just needs posting. Okay, so going back home here, so let's see, I'll go for 10 more minutes, and then I'll have you ask some questions if you like. So firstly, if I just go back to my requisition, so the last one we did, we started from scratch. So I could actually now do a search where, let's say, by any field at all, so any of the fields I keyed in, but I'm actually going to cheat and just pick the last one that I did. So there's the requisition that I just did, and I can actually duplicate this. So that's another way of creating a requisition. Find an older requisition and duplicate it, because and then just make minor changes and submit, because usually that would be, generally you do buy similar things. The other way I can create a requisition is to use a catalog. So I've got one here for designer bags. For designer handbags. And so this is an internally created catalog. So I've created this, so you can create this. So it's not an external, it's not going out to a customer. It's actually, it's not going out to a vendor. So I'm going to go, I want 1 of this or 2 of this. And I've just got a small catalog of 3 items. But obviously you could have a lot more than that. And continue shopping, and I'll have 1 of this, continue shopping, and I'll have 1 of that. So I'm buying 4 different designer handbags, and I'm going to go, I want to create a requisition. So this shopping list is imported using Excel, and it's something you do from within WorkPlace. So mostly clients would do this for particular vendors that they frequently would shop from. And so there's my requisition with any information that I defaulted on the shopping list. So in my example, I didn't default a supplier, but I could have defaulted a supplier, of a GL account, etc., etc. So firstly, create the requisition from scratch, shop using an internally created shopping list. And I'm just going to delete that one and go back and create a different one. So you can also shop externally by punching out to a supplier. So a lot of our clients would do shopping to suppliers such as office supplies or corporate express, etc. So you go directly into their website, and it's a very similar concept to my designer handbags, where you just go onto the internet, pick the items, add them to your shopping cart, and they come in as a requisition. And you can also use an internally created shopping list, which is really just a lesser version than a catalog because you're not going to have pictures, etc. So if I go and have a look, this is just a simple internal catalog where we have a shopping list that, I may have with a vendor who's actually said that we're giving you this price for the next few weeks, and so you would create a shopping list and just say it's going to be active for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. So notice this particular shopping list, I've defaulted the prices, you don't need to, and also I've defaulted the supplier and etc. It's all created already, I just need to submit it. So those are 3 other ways of creating a requisition. And you can also bypass the requisition altogether and just do a check request. So a check request basically is a requisition that does not become a purchase order. It goes straight into Great Plains as a shipment invoice. So if it's really for things like utilities, etc., where you don't need to create a purchase order because the supplier does not require a purchase order. So internal catalogs, external catalogs, shopping lists, and manual requisitions. And lastly, you can actually import requisitions just using Excel. Okay, so that's your other option. Now I'm going to go and have a look at a requisition that I did a while back. So let's say I go find requisition, and I'm going to select requisition number 9. And so that brings up my requisition number 9. So this particular requisition I did a long time ago. Let's say I just wanted to show you the level of detail you can see in your inquiry. So it tells me that I ordered one, I shipped one, I've invoiced and matched one. And then notice I've got all the vendor information. I've got all my PO commitments here regarding my budgets, and I've got all the history here as to, an audit trail of exactly what happened. I think the line before this has a payment as well. So let's just have a look at that. I think it does. No, maybe it's the first line. But as you can see, you can also, yep, I don't have any payment. But you can see that if I go and pay this in Great Plains, I'm going to have the check number, the payment date, and payment amount as well. Within WorkPlace, you can also go and cancel quantities if you're not going to fully receive them all. Notice this one's been cancelled. And also provide a reason for cancelling it.